Okay, Generation Z or Centennial. Between the ages of 8 and 23, the Generation Z or post-millennial will take center stage within a few decades, also cataloged as Centennial, for having come into the world at the turn of the century. Their Generation X parents raised Generation Z to be independent and able to for themselves. This causes Generation Z to react and to need less positive reinforcement. But what is Generation Z? It is a set of people that is marked by the internet. It is part of their DNA. It breaks into their home, their education, and their way of socializing. Globally, Generation Z will also soon be the largest generation as they surpass millennials. Being digital native in a time of always wired connectivity, Generation Z has a global perspective. This makes this generation comfortable with making new friends, communicating openly, and agitating for change in online social communities. Their mastery technology may cause them to neglect their interpersonal relationships more, but they are the ones who give more voice to social causes on the internet. Generation Z members are cosmopolitans who are willing and able to mobilize across international borders to effect change. The economy. These are traits that predict what the economy of Generation Z will be. This is like power. The vast majority tend to consume less meat than their predecessors, and many do not drink alcohol. Vintage. There are tremendously digital generation. They use technology to manage their finances and interact with banks and other financial services. More e-commerce. The cheaper technology, the improvement in connectivity, and the facilities for digital literacy will mean that few people of Generation Z will be left without access to digital platforms. The e-commerce will be the main beneficiary.
Okay, the technology. Over the 20 years of Generation Z, we have seen the introduction of Amazon, Netflix, Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, the iPhone, and self-driven cars. In fact, 55% of Generation Z use their smartphone for 5 or more hours per day, where 26% use it for more than 10 hours per day. Technology has become an integral part of our daily life. Generation Z is the one of the first group to grow up with the formation of social media, which has clearly altered the way we think and do things. Another thing to take into account is that the world of advanced technology and constant connectivity is both useful and detrimental due to the different dangers that society face today and the most vulnerable being victims. Generation Z is the most diverse generation in the story. Technology isn't just changing education in Generation Z. Technology has increased connectivity with the outside the world, but it has also increased serious problems like depression and suicide. And it has changed the way members of the Generation Z perceive themselves. Previous generations did not have technology that was too accessible. And the next, please. Okay, the art and the science. Today, arts organizations are in the midst of a crisis between them, between a museum or a theater. You will observe firsthand that the statistics tell us today audience and the donor pool are primarily baby boomers, while millennia has been reluctant to pay for subscriptions and the membership or donate to civic organizations. And Generation Z prefer to turn out their TVs or the to a website and they watch it all without attending a museum of theater. At art and science, we have a belief that while things like technology, pop culture, and media may change is the most important. And for example, Sigmund Paul, his work combined the rational and the irrational ironic magic, and the original use of experimental techniques clearly expressed ideas and the aesthetic conscience. Okay,
Now, the important event. Like the four generations before them, I'm talking about Generation Y, Generation X, the baby boomers, and the veterans. Generation Z's life experiences influence how they view, experience, and react to the world around them. With no experience in a pre-digital world, Generation Z members are digital native. In fact, Generation Z has never lived in a world where the internet did not exist. They were literally born in the digital age. As a result, global events have actively shaped this generation's view of the world. Here are 12 influential events that shaped Generation Z, like this. The election of Barack Obama, uh, shared family responsibilities, climate change, always wire connectivity, voluntarism, corporate social responsibility, terrorism and war. We also have some example like this is terrorism and war, and the social networking, the smartphones mobile first, the Great Recession, the text messaging, and the gun violence.
Education. Members of Generation Z are comfortable consuming large amount of content. They are also are comfortable creating their own content. For that, so professors should give them platforms to share material they create. At the same time, they are acquire knowledge by searching in Google or watching videos in YouTube. It is up to educator to student develop a healthy sense of skepticism and an habit of making sure their source and credible. This ready availability of knowledge coupled with ubiquitous technology has hardwired Generation Z students with short attention spans. They process information is very quickly, which made them excellent problem solvers and critical thinkers. but educators must teach them to ask the right questions. Professors also must figure out how to capture their attention by employing a variety of audio, visual, and kinesthetic learning to keep them engaged.
Music. Since to the end of the decade wrap-ups, we saw the some of the most listened artists were Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, and beyond, but also Drake, BTS, and Stormzy. And on the part of Ecuador, we have some removes artists such as Michael Mauricio Cedeño, Mirela Chesa, and Daniel Paez, just to name a few of them. For example, Ed Sheeran. He is one of the most followed and listened to artists on YouTube and Spotify. He's most listened to song of Spotify in history, such as Shape of You, Perfect, or Photograph. Other artists, Taylor Swift, the career of the American has been forming as we grow up, the young people of Generation Z. His most listening to song are Shape Is Off or Look What You Made Me Do. Famous people. In most cases, adolescents can become simply a stage of transitions to adult life. Some of these adolescents limit themselves to finding themselves other to rebel against an imposed system and others, such as the current Generation Z, formed by those born after 1995 to the social revelation of the 21st century. We have international celebrations such as Kerina Shipke, Jaden Smith, and Chloe Grace Moretz, but Ecuador also has famous people with incredible talent. It is worth mentioning as Erica Vélez, Robert Manrique, and María Teresa Guerrero.